Welcome to the lands of science fiction stories. I wish you a pleasant listening experience.
Grand Admiral Zev Thalner of the Galactic Dominion glared at the holographic battlefield display, his three eyes squinting as if it would somehow make sense of the chaos. The human fleet, represented by glowing red markers, zigzagged erratically across the screen. It was as if they were playing a cosmic game of tag instead of fighting a war. "Report," he barked, his voice echoing off the walls of the Dominion war room. His mandibles clicked in irritation, betraying his growing frustration. Lieutenant Zerka, his loyal adjutant, stepped forward, her thin tendrils twitching nervously. "Admiral, the humans appear to be executing some kind of erratic, unpatterned maneuver." She paused, her voice uncertain. "It's called the Crazy Ivan, according to intercepted transmissions." Zev's eye stalk swiveled towards her. "Crazy Ivan? What kind of tactic is that?" His mandibles clenched, and the scales on his brow rippled with agitation. "Are they attempting a flanking maneuver, or?" Zerka shifted her weight, her expression one of discomfort. "No, sir. They appear to be randomly spinning their ships and accelerating unpredictably. We cannot calculate their trajectory. It's making our targeting systems," she hesitated, her tendrils knotting together, "ineffective." The Admiral's frustration boiled over. Ineffective? These primitives turn warfare into a circus act, and suddenly our advanced technology is ineffective? His tail lashed out, striking the nearest console, leaving a dent. What do they think this is, a performance? Just as he finished his tirade, a new alert sounded. Zev snapped his eyes back to the holographic display. One of the human ships, a smaller one, broke off from the main group, speeding directly towards the Dominion's flagship. Zev's heart rate spiked. "All hands, prepare for impact. They're going for a suicide run." But instead of ramming into them, the human ship veered sharply at the last moment. The Dominion's automated defense systems, struggling to keep up, fired at where it should have been, hitting nothing but empty space. "What in the—" Zev muttered. The human ship continued its path, darting in and out of laser fire, looping around Dominion vessels, making fools of their targeting systems. "Sir," Zerka said, her voice carrying a hint of disbelief, "the maneuver is known as threading the needle. They seem to be using our own ships as cover." Zev stared at the display, stunned. It was genius. No, it was madness. He slammed his fist onto the console, causing a ripple of electric blue to cascade across the hologram. "This isn't a battle tactic, it's suicide." The human ship continued its acrobatic dance, weaving through the chaos it had created. And then, in an act that defied all logic, the vessel turned sideways, drifting through the gap between two Dominion cruisers in a daring barrel roll. "What are they doing now?" Zev demanded, his voice rising with irritation. "Sir, they appear to be showing off." Zerka's voice was flat, as if she couldn't believe it herself. "It seems their ships are capable of maneuvers we never anticipated." "Of course they are," Zev muttered, his mandibles grinding together. "And our analysts said these humans were nothing but brutes." As he watched the human ship pirouette through the lines of battle, his irritation was joined by something else, a sinking feeling that they were up against an enemy who fought not with tactics but with sheer unpredictability. He had read the reports about humans, Deathworlders, they called them. Creatures who thrived in environments so hostile that Dominion scientists believed no sentient species could survive, let alone flourish there. Deathworlders, Zev hissed under his breath. A fitting name. Suddenly, the human ship cut engines and drifted, sending a signal through all channels. The war room fell silent as the message flashed onto the holographic screen. "Nice aim. Try again." Zev felt his pulse quicken, his scales bristling. "They're taunting us," he growled. "They're mocking our superior firepower." Before he could respond, a second message followed. This time, it was accompanied by a holographic image, a cartoonish depiction of a Dominion admiral, his eyes crossed and tongue sticking out, holding a sign that read, "Missed me." The room filled with uncomfortable silence. Zerka's tendrils twitched, and several officers exchanged worried glances. Zev's claws dug into the console, the screen beneath them crackling. "They're playing games with us," he snarled, mandibles twitching. Zerka cleared her throat. "Perhaps, sir, they are using psychological warfare to disorient our forces." Zev's eyes blazed with fury. "Or perhaps they think this is some kind of joke. Prepare the ion disruptors. We'll tear them apart ship by ship. I want no more of these." An officer interrupted, his voice shaking. "Admiral, another transmission, video feed, sir." The screen flickered, and the image of a human appeared. He was grinning, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "Hey there, Dominion bigwigs," the human said, leaning back in his chair as if he were addressing old friends. "Having trouble keeping up? Don't worry, we'll slow down for you, or maybe we won't." He winked and the feed cut off. Zev's mandibles clicked furiously. "These humans, they think they're invincible." Zerka's tendrils coiled and uncoiled nervously. "Sir, it might be more than that. Their unpredictability, their tactics, they operate on a different level, one we're not prepared for." "Then we'll have to change the way we fight," Zev said, a grim determination settling over his features. "If they want chaos, we'll give them chaos. Begin the offensive. I want every ship in this sector armed and ready." As the Dominion forces mobilized, the human fleet continued its dance, dodging laser fire and slipping through the chaos with ease. The battle would rage on, but for the first time, Zev Thalner felt the chilling realization that he was not facing a conventional enemy. He was up against beings who defied logic, who thrived in chaos. And as the Dominion ships surged forward, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were dancing to the human's tune, a tune he didn't know the steps to. Zev Thalner paced the command deck, his tail swishing back and forth in agitation as the Dominion fleet surged into formation. His eyes darted from one screen to another, tracking the movements of the human ships as they scattered and reformed like flocks of birds, impossible to pin down. Every time the Dominion's gunners locked onto a target, it vanished or twisted away. "Lieutenant Zerka, report," he barked, trying to maintain an air of control despite the chaos unraveling on his screens. Zerka's tendrils were coiled tightly, an indication of her stress. "Admiral, our ships are struggling to maintain a cohesive formation. The human vessels are moving in unpredictable patterns. It's as if they're toying with us." Zev's mandibles twitched, his patience wearing thin. "Toying with us? We are the Galactic Dominion. We don't get toyed with." He slammed his fist on the console, the blue light flickering for a moment under the force. Just then, a new alert blared through the deck. Zev's eyes darted to the screen, and a wave of disbelief washed over him. "What now?" he growled. Zerka's voice was barely above a whisper, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Sir, the humans, they've deployed." She hesitated as if unsure how to continue. "They're deploying holographic projections. Hundreds of them." Zev's claws dug into the console as he leaned forward. "Holograms? What kind of holograms?" The screen zoomed in, and Zev's eyes narrowed as he saw the human ships projecting images of Dominion ships. Hundreds of identical Dominion cruisers and destroyers filled the battlefield, making it impossible to distinguish friend from foe. "They've cloned our fleet," Zev muttered, his voice a mixture of anger and reluctant admiration. "They're using our own tactics against us." The Dominion fleet hesitated, and for a brief moment, confusion rippled through their ranks. Zev could feel it, the hesitation, the uncertainty. His fleet, disciplined and precise, was suddenly lost in a sea of identical signatures. "Admiral, our targeting systems are compromised. We can't tell which are the real ships." Zerka's tendrils writhed in distress. Zev clenched his jaw. Damn these humans and their tricks. He glanced at Zerka, his eyes burning with intensity. "Prepare for manual targeting. If we can't tell which ships are ours, then we'll rely on visual identification." The Dominion fleet adapted, switching to manual targeting. Officers and gunners peered through visual scopes, trying to differentiate the real from the fake. For a moment, it seemed as though order might be restored. But then a new signal lit up the comm channels. "Sir, the humans are transmitting again. It's another message." Zerka hesitated, as if unsure whether to relay the information. "Play it," Zev ordered, his voice a cold growl. "I want to know what these Deathworlders are up to." The screen shifted to reveal another human, different from the one before. This one had a sly grin and a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Hey there, Dominion folks," he began, leaning back in his chair with a casual ease that made Zev's blood boil. "We noticed you're having a hard time keeping track of your ships. Thought we'd lend a hand." The human winked, and the feed cut to black. Zev's scales bristled. "They mock us at every turn," he hissed. "They think they're invincible." But before he could react, another visual feed appeared, and this time, the Dominion fleet witnessed something that sent a wave of confusion and anger through their ranks. One of the human ships, surrounded by a swarm of holographic clones, began transmitting an image, a Dominion flag, only it had been altered. The emblem of the Dominion was covered in childish doodles and symbols. At its center, a crude depiction of Zev himself, with exaggerated eyes and a tongue sticking out, mocked them. The command deck fell silent. Zev felt his temper flare, and he slammed his claws onto the console again, the impact reverberating through the war room. "They're making a mockery of us." Zerka's voice was strained, her tendrils knotting with tension. "Admiral, our ships are becoming disoriented. Some of the captains are losing morale." "Then remind them who they are." Zev roared. "We are the Galactic Dominion, and we will not be humiliated by these primitives. Prepare the plasma lances and target the largest cluster. I want those ships vaporized." The plasma lances, the pride of the Dominion's weaponry, powered up, their deadly energy building as they locked onto the target. Zev watched with anticipation, his eyes fixed on the display. "Fire," he commanded. The plasma lances unleashed their fury, bright beams of energy slicing through space. The Dominion officers watched, their eyes reflecting the glow of their most powerful weapons. But as the beams struck the human fleet, the ships dispersed, scattering like leaves in a cosmic wind. Only a few were hit, and even then, the blasts seemed to barely scratch their shields. "It's like trying to catch smoke," Zev muttered, his mandibles twitching with frustration. "Admiral, incoming transmission." Zerka's voice was tight, her tendrils curling. "They're sending us a challenge." Zev's eyes narrowed. "A challenge?" The screen shifted again, and the face of the human admiral appeared. He was grinning from ear to ear. "Grand Admiral Zev Thalner, I'm officially inviting you to a dance-off." Zev's mandibles dropped open. "What?" "You heard me," the human admiral continued, his tone dripping with amusement. "We're tired of these boring old tactics. Let's see if you've got the moves to keep up with us." As the feed cut off, the war room was silent. Zev stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. "A dance-off," he repeated, disbelief coloring every syllable. "This is a battlefield, not a stage." But before he could issue another order, a holographic display lit up, showing the human ships moving in synchronized patterns, forming shapes and designs, some mocking, some elegant. They twisted and spun, moving in a coordinated, hypnotic dance that captivated and confused the Dominion fleet. Zerka's tendrils twitched. "Admiral, what do we do?" Zev's eyes burned with determination. "If they want chaos, then we'll give them chaos. Reconfigure our formation into the spiral of stars. We'll outmaneuver their dance with our own." As the Dominion fleet began to shift, twisting into a complex formation that had taken centuries to perfect, Zev watched the human ships. They continued to move with a grace and unpredictability that was both impressive and infuriating. "Engage," Zev commanded. "Let's show these humans that the Dominion doesn't play games." As the battle raged on, the space between them filled with light, energy, and the intricate maneuvers of two vastly different forces. But for the first time, Zev felt the thrill of uncertainty, the excitement of battling an opponent who refused to follow the rules. And deep down, he knew this would be a fight unlike any other, a clash of chaos, strategy, and perhaps a dance-off that would decide the fate of the galaxy.
The Dominion fleet moved into position, forming the spiral of stars, a maneuver perfected over centuries, designed to encircle and overwhelm an enemy with precision strikes from all angles. Grand Admiral Zev Thalner watched the display as his ships coiled and twisted like a predatory serpent, tightening its grip. He felt the familiar surge of confidence as the plan unfolded. "These humans think they can play games with us," he muttered. "Let's show them the strength of the Dominion." On the screen, the human fleet seemed to hesitate. Their erratic maneuvers slowed, and for a brief moment, it looked as if they were caught off guard. Zev's eyes lit up. "They're stalling," he growled. "Prepare to strike." But before his command could be executed, the human ships began to move again, faster, more synchronized than before. This time, they formed a perfect circle, encircling the Dominion fleet in a mirror image of the spiral of stars. "What is this?" Zev demanded, his eyes narrowing. "They're mimicking our formation." Zerka's tendrils curled in distress. "Admiral, the human ships are broadcasting something." She paused, her voice carrying a note of disbelief. "It's a song, sir." "A song?" Zev's mandibles clicked together in frustration. "Why are they broadcasting music?" The screens lit up with a visual feed. The human ships, perfectly in sync, moved in graceful, sweeping arcs as a powerful rhythm echoed through the Dominion war room. It was an ancient Earth song, with a pulsating beat and lyrics that defied translation. The chorus repeated a single phrase over and over, as the human ships danced in perfect harmony. Zev stared at the display, his mandibles twitching. This isn't warfare. This is madness." But as he watched, he saw the effect it had on his fleet. Dominion ships hesitated, their captains distracted by the unfamiliar music, their gunners thrown off by the hypnotic movements of the human fleet. "Admiral, we're losing cohesion," Zerka reported. "Our targeting systems are unable to lock onto the human ships. They're moving too fast, too erratically." Zev felt his frustration boil over. "Override all systems. Target manually and fire. I don't care if it's chaos. We will not be humiliated by." The screen flickered, and the face of the human admiral reappeared. He was smiling, and there was a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Grand Admiral Zev Thalner, it's been fun. But now we'll show you how we really win wars." Before Zev could respond, the human fleet executed an impossible maneuver. Their ships rotated and split into multiple formations, crisscrossing through the Dominion spiral of stars. They moved with such precision and speed that Dominion targeting systems couldn't keep up. Plasma lances fired, but they struck only empty space as the human ships weaved between them. "It's a trap!" Zerka shouted, her tendrils flaring in panic. "They've split our formation in half." Zev's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. The humans had lured them into a false sense of security, baiting them into using their most advanced maneuver only to counter it with something far more chaotic and effective. The human ships formed a new pattern, one that resembled the Dominion spiral of stars but inverted. They tightened the circle, drawing the Dominion ships closer together until they were forced into a bottleneck. "Admiral, they're closing in." Zerka's voice was filled with alarm. "We're trapped." Zev gripped the console, his claws digging into the surface. "All ships, break formation. Scatter and regroup." But it was too late. The human fleet, now perfectly positioned, unleashed a coordinated barrage. Missiles streaked across the battlefield, weaving between Dominion ships and striking critical points with pinpoint accuracy. Explosions lit up the space around them as ships from the Dominion fleet were disabled, one after another. Zev watched in disbelief as his fleet, the pride of the Galactic Dominion, fell into disarray. "How are they doing this?" he muttered, his voice barely audible. The human admiral's voice crackled over the comms again. "It's simple, really. Chaos is our specialty." Zev's claws tightened. "These Deathworlders, they've made a mockery of us." For the first time, he felt the weight of defeat pressing down on him. His fleet was scattered, his ships burning, and the humans continued their relentless assault, their ships moving like dancers in a cosmic ballet. "Admiral," Zerka's voice was quiet, almost resigned. "We're being overrun. We can't maintain this position." Zev closed his eyes, his mandibles clicking together in a final moment of resolve. "Order the retreat. We've lost this battle." As the Dominion ships attempted to pull back, the human fleet continued its offensive, herding them like sheep into an ambush. The humans had not only outmaneuvered them but had turned the very tactics of the Dominion into a weapon against them. Zev felt the bitter sting of humiliation. "Admiral, the humans are transmitting one final message," Zerka said, her voice subdued. Zev opened his eyes, staring at the screen. The human admiral appeared once more, but this time there was no grin, only a look of grim determination. "Admiral Zev Falner," the human said, "we fight for freedom and we fight for survival. We don't play by anyone's rules but our own. If you think you can defeat us with strategy alone, you're mistaken. We are Deathworlders and chaos is our weapon." The feed cut off, and Zev watched as the human ships began their final sweep. His fleet, once the pinnacle of military precision, was now in ruins. The spiral of stars, his most trusted tactic, lay shattered in the void. Zev stood in silence, the weight of his defeat settling upon him. He glanced at Zerka, who looked back with a mixture of sadness and respect. "Admiral, they've won." Zev nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Yes, they have. And now we must learn from this." As the remnants of the Dominion fleet retreated into the darkness, Zev knew this was not the end. The humans had shown them something beyond strategy, beyond technology. They had shown them the power of chaos, of unpredictability, and of an unyielding will to survive. The battle was lost, but the war was far from over. Zev Falner, Grand Admiral of the Galactic Dominion, would remember this lesson. And one day, he vowed, the Dominion would rise again, stronger, and prepared for the madness of the Deathworlders. But for now, as he watched the human fleet dance victoriously through the wreckage, he knew one thing for certain. The humans had earned their place among the stars, and no one would forget the day the Deathworlders outmaneuvered the Dominion.